Energy prices in the United States have been volatile again, and for many Americans nearing retirement, that raises a simple but critical question. Will the cost of living stay manageable over the next 10, 20, even 30 years? Or are we entering a period where stability itself becomes harder to predict? Behind these price swings is a deeper issue, one that rarely makes headlines, yet quietly shapes everything downstream. It's not just about oil anymore. It's about something less visible, but potentially far more influential: the materials powering the next generation of energy. Let's break this down. Imagine if most of a country's fuel, even if sourced from different parts of the world, had to pass through a single, centralized set of refineries. What would that mean? It would mean those refineries hold enormous influence, not just over supply, but over price itself. Now here's where it becomes real. Today, a large share of critical energy materials, lithium, cobalt, rare earth elements, are not necessarily mined in one place, but they are processed in one place: China. And that distinction? It changes everything. Because in modern supply chains, control doesn't always sit at the source. It often sits at the processing stage. So what happens if that stage slows down? The effects don't stay local. They ripple outward, impacting manufacturers, markets, and eventually, everyday consumers. We've already started to see early signals. In recent years, several battery plants across the US and Europe have delayed expansion or scaled back operations. For workers, that can mean fewer hours and less certainty. For consumers, it can mean higher prices, not just for electric vehicles, but for electricity, logistics, and even everyday goods. If that feels familiar, you're not alone. For some Americans, this echoes a pattern seen before, not identical, but reminiscent of the 1973 oil crisis, where supply constraints quickly translated into higher costs and visible disruption. So here's a question worth asking. Are we seeing the early stages of something similar or something entirely new? To be clear, today's system is far more complex. Global supply chains are deeply interconnected. Governments and companies are actively trying to diversify, working with partners like Australia and other allies. And organizations like the International Energy Agency have already issued a warning. Demand for these materials could rise significantly in the years ahead. But the West isn't just watching from the sidelines. From the corridors of Washington to the tech hubs of Silicon Valley, a massive shift is already underway. A movement toward something called onshoring. New policies, like the Inflation Reduction Act, are channeling billions of dollars into domestic processing and manufacturing. Not someday, but right now. And it doesn't stop there. A new kind of system is beginning to take shape, what some call circular supply chains, where old batteries aren't discarded, but reclaimed, broken down, reprocessed, and turned into new sources of lithium and cobalt right at home. So what does that really mean? It means the strategy is changing, from global dependence to something more controlled, more localized. But here's the tension. This isn't just an upgrade, it's a high-stakes pivot, a race against time to build resilience before the next disruption hits. So the question is, can these new systems scale fast enough to actually reduce vulnerability, or are we still more exposed than we think? Because here's the underlying challenge. If demand grows faster than processing capacity diversifies, what happens next? Prices may not spike overnight, but they could remain persistently sensitive to disruption. Subtle, ongoing, harder to escape. And that brings it back to something personal. For households, this isn't just about global systems, it's about the long-term cost of energy, transportation, daily living, and even the pace of the energy transition itself. For those planning retirement, this introduces a different kind of risk, because at that stage, stability often matters more than growth. So the real question becomes, can the system deliver both? The transition to new energy systems promises real benefits: cleaner air, new industries, new opportunities. But it also introduces a deeper, more complex uncertainty. Are we building a more secure energy future, or simply moving the point of vulnerability? And maybe the most important insight is this. The answer may not lie in what we produce, but in something far less visible and far more decisive: where and how it's processed. So when you think about the future of energy, what concerns you more? Access to resources or control over the systems behind them? Because in the next layer of this story, there's an even more overlooked factor, one that could reshape not just energy, but global power itself. Do you want to explore that next?